Geraldine, a 17-year-old Spanish athlete, aspired to participate in the Olympics before turning 21. But then something big happened that changed her whole life. On the track, she was getting ready for an exciting trip to the mountains with some of her teammates. She couldn't wait for the adventure, but little did she know that terror would strike on this trip. Geraldine, her two friends Lee and Pam rode in Pam's father's Jeep to a cabin deep in the woods, where they would have the time of their lives. Pam's parents were very wealthy, and under pressure, the trip was a great way to relax, and when they got there, Geraldine wanted to swim right away because it was so hot and the drive had been 3 hours. What she saw looked like a snake, but it wasn't very long. It had the head of a snake and a short body, and it looked like it was heading straight for her face. After being shocked at first, she carefully watched the creature's behavior and movements to see if it posed any danger to it. Geraldine swam back up with all her might to beat the speedy creature that was darting after her. Just before she hit the surface, she felt a ping in her ear. Did the creature get her? When she got to the surface, she screamed for her friends to get out of the water, and they swam as fast as they could to pull her along because she was freaking out. The girls took a shower and ate lunch at a nearby restaurant. Afterward, they sat on the porch and watched Lee, the bookworm, choose to look into river snakes and find something that Geraldine said was a baby water snake. It wasn't poisonous, so even if she got bitten or a ping on the ear, she should be fine. So what was Geraldine's real problem? When Pam asked her if she wanted to see a doctor, Geraldine said she would be fine in the morning. But while she was sleeping that night, the worst thing happened. She started to feel a heavy pain in her ear. It got so bad that she screamed around 2 a.m. When Lee and Pam woke up, they found Geraldine curled up on the bed holding her ears and rocking back and forth. When they tried to check on her, she screamed hipsed when Pam took Geraldine's hand off her ears to see what was going on. She saw something that scared her to death. What did she see? Lee also looked after seeing Pam's freaked out response, and what she saw made her run to the bathroom and throw up. What was happening to Garen was too horrible to bear. Pam calmed down, put on her boots, and grabbed her keys. She and her friend carried their friend to the car and sped to the hospital, but on the way, they almost hit a deer on the road and ended up hitting a tree. It felt like they were in a scary movie. Pam and Lee tried to call an ambulance but couldn't get a signal. So they waited on the side of the road for someone to come by and help them. Something was stuck in Geraldine's ear, and she whined in pain as it tried to come out. What was it, and how did it get in there? As the hours went by, blood started coming out of her ear, and her eyes started rolling backward. Pam and Lee kept hitting her face to keep her awake. How were they going to get her to the hospital on time when it was 4 a.m. and no car was showing up? The friends had to come up with a plan. While Lee held onto Geraldine, Pam took out her tweezers and got the alcohol from the emergency box. Pam used her tweezers to grab the moving creature's head. It was a scary sight, and the girls had to be brave for their friends. The snake in Geraldine's ear was stuck and couldn't be taken out. It was still alive and looking scary because its mouth kept opening. After an hour of trying to take the snake out, Geraldine passed out. Did this creature kill her? Lee and Pam started to cry as they tried to help their friend get up. Suddenly, a truck pulled up, and the girls stood there waving to make sure it stopped. A tall man got out, and the girls were glad that he was a good person who would help them get Geraldine to the nearest hospital. When the doctors saw what was in her ears, they were all shocked. This had never happened before, and they didn't know how to get the snake out because it was stuck. They rushed Geraldine to the intensive care unit, ICU, while her friend stayed in the waiting room and hoped everything would be okay. The doctors were in for the hardest surgery they had ever seen because the snake looked like it had lost its way. What should they do next? To get the snake out, Geraldine had to have major surgery that involved cutting through her earlobe. Once the snake was out, something else happened that made everyone in the surgery room nervous. A scan showed that Geraldine's brain had been hurt, putting her into a coma. Doctors did everything they could, but the snake touched some important nerves in her ear and slowed down her brain. Who would have thought that a simple trip would do so much damage? Will Geraldine ever wake up from this coma? Pam and Lee were devastated, and Geraldine's mother blamed everything on the girls, saying that they were always jealous of her daughter. This was not how the friends ever imagined their adventure to the mountains would turn out. Geraldine's mom refused to let the girls see her daughter, and this hurt Lee and Pam because they had no intention of anyone being hurt. 1 year had passed, and Geraldine was no longer in a coma, but paralyzed from head to toe. The only thing she could move was her eyes. This was even more painful because now she was fully aware of what was going on and couldn't do anything about it. How long would she be able to survive in this state? Her mom hired a nurse to take care of her while she worked hard to pay all the medical bills that kept her daughter alive. Life became a bitter end of nothing for her mom, since Geraldine was all she had. She was her pride and joy. Then one day the most absurd thing suddenly happened. The nurse stepped out of the room for a while, and Geraldine stayed still with her eyes wide open, looking up at the ceiling. She was like a newborn baby, unable to feed herself, bathe herself, and even worse, not move an inch while looking at the ceiling and then the walls. She suddenly spotted something that struck a nerve and made her panic. It was a house snake crawling up the wall, and after her experience in the river, snakes were now her fear, and this time she couldn't do anything to escape. What would happen if the snake got closer? Geraldine started sweating, blinking, and breathing heavily. She wished that she could move, but she was stuck, and the more she wished the snake would go away, the closer it got. She closed her eyes and tried to calm her mind, attempting something different from her inner being. Geraldine focused hard and tried to make her dream come true. When she opened her eyes, the snake was on the bed. She looked at her right hand again and focused again. Suddenly, it moved. She dropped something from the side table, which woke up the nurse. When the nurse rushed in, she saw Galeni's right hand hanging out of the bed and her fingers moving. She quickly checked her out, and the strange thing she saw: Geraldine started a tough rehabilitation program. She realized that the power was in her mind and that she needed to find a way to imagine her body moving to make it happen. After another 6 months of intensive rehabilitation, Geraldine was able to walk, feed herself, and bathe herself without help. Her ears were still damaged, but she found ways to deal with them by using hearing aids, sign language, and lip reading. As Geraldine started to get back to normal, she faced new challenges. Pam and Lee met up with their friend Geraldine's mom, who admitted she had made a mistake and apologized to the girls for the pain she had caused. Geraldine wanted to go back to the cabin to finish their unfinished vacation with her mom, but her mom strongly opposed this plan. However, Geraldine refused to let fear or regrets hold her back. She, Pam, and Lee went back to the mountains, determined to make the most of their time there. Subscribe to our channel now and dive into the world of bizarre enigma stories for a mind-bending adventure like no other.